now we're going to be looking at ratio word problems. Now this is where things start getting a little bit tricky for some of you. So you really need to see how I'm breaking down the questions to work out what we're going to do with the maths. Alright, so this first example, James and Sam buy a length of timber and divide it between them in the ratio 2 to 3. If James has 5.4 metres, what length of timber does Sam have? Okay, so what we're going to do with our ratio is make sure we have headings. So we've got a ratio of 2 to 3, but the two people they're talking about in this ratio are James and Sam. Okay, so you've got to make sure that these two people are our headings. So we write James and Sam down in the order that they're written in the question, and then we write the 2 to 3 underneath. Okay, now the other number they talk about is this 5.4 metres, and this they're telling you is James. So we're going to put over on the James side here, we're going to write 5.4 metres underneath. And then they're asking what length of timber does Sam have. So that's our question mark. That's what we're trying to find over there. Now, if you get these two bits and just get your red pen and draw a box around that, they're trying to tell you that 2 parts in our ratio is going to equal 5.4 metres. So that's how I'm going to write this. 2 parts in the ratio equals 5.4 metres. Now what we do next is always find 1 part. Alright, so it's like when if you go to a shop and they say 2 bananas cost $1.20 and you're going, well, I need 5 bananas, how much is this going to cost me? You always work out the price of 1 banana. And then you go, oh, okay, so now I'll work out 5 bananas. So that's what we do here. All right, we are always going to be finding 1 part in this next line for working. It's always going to be a 1. So we go, all right, what have we done to 2 to get 1? We've divided by 2. So we come over here to the other side and we do the same thing, divide by 2. So if you go to your calculator and do 5.4 divided by 2, it will give you 2.7. Don't worry about any units at the moment, just the numbers. Now, the question's asking about Sam. Now, Sam has 3 parts in the ratio. So for Sam, the one we're trying to find out, we're trying to find 3 parts. So we go, all right, well, what have I done to 1 to get an answer of 3? I've times by 3. And so I'm going to do the same over here. So on your calculator, you're going to do 2.7 times 3, and that will give you 8.1, and that's our answer. So we're going to write our meters on the end now, and that's the end of the question. All right, so let's try another one. This one's a really popular question because it's actually true. This is the ratio that they use. So if you were wanting to concrete a footpath or your driveway or something like that, they need to make the concrete. And what makes the concrete is sand and cement mixed together. So sand and cement, those two things, they're going to be our headings. And the ratio they tell you is 4 to 1. So the 4 will go underneath sand and the 1 will go underneath cement. Then they tell you another number. 140 kilograms is cement. So we put it under here because that's our cement heading. And then the actual question says, what mass of sand is needed? So this is what we're trying to find out, the sand mass. So we get our red pen, put a box around here, and that's going to be the start of our working. So we have 1 part in the ratio equals 140 kilograms. We start with that. Now normally our second line is finding 1 part, but we've already got that. So really we're starting in this line here. So the question is we need to find the sand, which is 4 parts. So how can we go from 1 part to 4 parts? What are we doing? We're timesing by 4. And we do the same to the other side. So on your calculator you're doing 140 times 4 and you will get 560 and then write the kilograms on the end. Underline your answer. Okay, number 3. we have 2 lengths of material in the ratio of 4 to 7. Now it's a bit hard with this one because there's not 2 headings we can write down. So we'll leave a space for some headings and we'll just write 4 to 7. So we'll see what else they've got to say. They say the longer length is 56 centimetres. Okay, well which one of these is going to be longer? It'll be this one because it's the bigger number. So I'm just going to write longer up top of my heading. So this one will be shorter. And we'll go from here now. So the longer length is 56 centimetres. So under our longer heading, we're writing 56 centimetres. And we're trying to find the shorter length. So that's where our question mark goes. Now we get our red pen, put a box around this, and that's the start of our working. 7 parts equals 56 centimetres. And we always, in this next line, find 1 part. So how do we go from 7 to 1 to get an answer of 1? We divide by 7. Do the same over here, and your calculator will give you 8. But we haven't finished the question yet because they want to know what the shorter length is, and the shorter length is 4 parts. Right, so what are we doing to 1 to get an answer of 4? We times it by 4. So we do the same over here, and we get an answer of 32, and write your centimetres on the end. All right, next question. So I hope you're getting into a bit of a habit of what we do with this process, but really it needs lots of practice. So the next one, we have in a rectangle the ratio of the width to the length. They're the 2 things. So they're our headings, width, length. And they tell you the ratio is 5 to 11. So write it down. Now, the length is 44 centimetres. So find your length heading and write your 44 centimetres over there. And the question is saying, find the width. That's what we're looking for. Just underline what we're looking for in each one. Okay, so when we find the width, that's this one here is the question mark. Get your red pen, draw your box around the 2 numbers we do know, and that's our start. So we're going to have 11 parts in the ratio equals 44 centimetres. Okay, we always find 1 part in the next line. And how do we go from 11 to get an answer of 1? We divide by 11. Now do the same to the other side, divide by 11, and that will give you 4. Now I know these are working out nice whole numbers, that doesn't always happen. You might have 43 divided by 11. Whatever the calculator gives you, you write down. So if it's got 8 decimal places, you write the whole lot down in that line. Don't ever round that off. Okay, so we're trying to find 5 parts for this question. So we write 5 parts equals. Now how do we go from 1 to get an answer of 5? We times by 5. Do the same over the other side, keep it all balanced. And you'll get 20, and you can write your centimetres on the end. All right, now the next question is asking for perimeter. Now, this one's got 2 parts to this question. They're trying to get you to think a little bit more now. So you know what perimeter is. You're just adding up all the sides of the rectangle. So we know a rectangle has 4 sides. So what are these 4 sides we're adding up? Well, we know that the length is 44 centimetres. So we know we've got a length of 44 and another length of 44. And then we need to do the 2 widths. So what is the width? Oh, we just found it, didn't we? The width is 20 centimetres. So we're going to, sorry about that, we turned around a bit further. So we're going to do 20 and another width 20. Now we're going to total all of that up. So add all that up on your calculator. And what are we going to end up with? Should be 128, and then we write centimetres on the end. Okay, now the last question here tells you that you've got a triangle and the lengths of the sides are in the ratios 3 to 4 to 5. Now, that should look a little bit familiar because that comes from Pythagoras' triad. All right, Pythagoras' theorem has some Pythagorean triads, and that's the one that gets used a lot. So this is actually a true thing that happens. All right, if the longest side is 45 centimetres long, find the perimeter. Okay, so we have a ratio here of 3 to 4 to 5. What headings can we have? Well, they talk about this longest side. Now, which one of those would be the longest side? It would be the biggest number. So I'm going to write longest up there. All right, this one would be the shortest, number 3. So let's call that the shortest. And this one would be the middle one, wouldn't it? So we just might call that middle. Just so we have some headings for these ratio numbers. All right, now it says the longest side is 45 centimetres. So under the longest heading, we're going to write 45 centimetres. And we've got to find the perimeter. Now, we can't find the perimeter unless we know all the sides. So we're going to have to find both of these. There's 2 things we need to work out this time. All right, so our first line of our working is taking this, putting a box around it, and that's the starting point for our working. And I'll just move this over a little bit. Okay, now let's have a look. So we're going to start with our 5 parts equals 45 centimetres, coming from this box here. Now, we always find one part, remember? Now, how do we go from 5 to get an answer of 1? We divide by 5. And then we come over the other side and do the same thing. Divide by 5. 45 divided by 5 will give you 9. Now, we need to find both of these things down here. So we need to find what 3 parts will equal. We also need to find what 4 parts will equal. So let's work on the 3 parts first. Going from here to here, 1, 2, 3, we times by 3. Do the same over here, and that will give you 27. So that's that one. Now for the other one, I'm going to go back to the 1 part line. Leave a little space first. Now this time we want to find 4 parts. So how do we go from 1 to get a 4? We times by 4. Do the same to the other side. 9 times 4 is 36. Okay, so let's have a look at what we have now. We're trying to find the perimeter, remember. So to find the perimeter, we have to add up the 3 sides of the triangle. So we know we've got a 45, plus we know we have a 27. I might just write centimetres on the end of that. Plus, we know we have a 36 because we found both those other sides. So now you're just going to add all of these up and see what we get. Let me see if I can do it in my head. It should end up being 108, and we're going to write centimetres on the end. Okay, so that's a little bit more complicated, that question. There are questions that will be harder than that, but I might make those extension questions when you get to your homework, but lots and lots of practice with these word problems. If you want to do well in this assessment task later on this work, you must practice it with all the working I've just done. Good luck with it.